Okay.
Cover me, man.
So just to level set, the council took action yesterday on a permanent bill that couldn't come into effect until the fall. Obviously, we are concerned about this spring and summer period, which would require council emergency action. We are now operating under my authority, which is limited, to have a curfew, and we needed the council to act yesterday. They decided to punt on the legislation. And there will be a gap between when my 15-day emergency runs out and they can act again. I think what we're seeing is that there is not a debate over the merits. Now it's all political, and I think that people need to put their political ambitions to the side and do their job.
Sorry, Mayor,
Yes.
do you plan on issuing another executive order to prevent any kind of gap?
Obviously, Stephanie, we have to look at the context that we're operating in. For a mayor to declare a public safety emergency, there have to be certain criteria met.
And then in terms of the council, with the emergency bill that is in place, right? First the emergency bill and then your order. There are some noting that even though it's an important tool, these teen gatherings, chaotic gatherings are still happening and that may not be as effective. What do you believe is truly missing in trying to address this issue?
We're dealing with a phenomenon that's not only happening in the district, it's happening in cities around our country. We're seeing children gather in large groups, very, very destructive behavior. And my concern is if we don't send a strong message that children shouldn't be gathering in large groups, something really bad is going to happen. Yes.
I just had a follow-up question for the chief on the Amber Alert issue this morning. Can you give any more context to that incident? Is this something domestic related? Do you believe that it's a family member that may have taken the child? Anything you could elaborate on that?
Yeah, so we don't have a lot of information. What we do know is we know that the victim in this case, that she was shot by an adult male. We have that based on some video evidence with that. But it took us some time to actually identify who the victim was. And then after we were able to identify who she was, we were able to determine that she did have a child and she had been with that child in the 500 block of Kenyon earlier in the evening. So we know that, at least 3 hours before that, she was with a child. We don't know who the suspect is this time. Obviously, we're continuing to canvass to interview folks. So we're continuing to investigate the homicide aspect of it, but more importantly is locating the child. We don't know if the child is with some other family member. We have made contact, of course, with the victim's family. They are not aware of the surroundings or the whereabouts of that child, but there could be another community member that's out there that has information. So anyone who saw him in the area, he's wearing a very distinctive blue and yellow striped long sleeve shirt that's out there. We've also pushed out images of him. Please contact us at 911 so we can immediately get officers out there. We have officers up in that area, canvassing now, going door to door and handing out flyers as well. We do have some information that there may be some family ties in the 5,000 block of Benning Road, so we're also looking in that area to see if there's other folks who may know his whereabouts. But this is the utmost importance to us.
I want to say something about the curfew. You're welcome. There is a huge gap in the public discussion as it relates to the curfews. The mayor and the police chief have done everything that they can. The mayor is trying to get some kind of permanency, so as she called it, the context of calling for an emergency, isn't then diluted, where she's seen as calling for an emergency every time there is a teen takeover. Make no mistake, these teen takeovers are dangerous, they are violent, and they end up in fighting, assaults, robberies. Businesses are impacted, people's quiet enjoyment, their ability to walk on the street is impacted, even if there is no crime. The gap in the public discussion has to do with the parents and parental accountability. And I see this as an area where the family court judges, when these kids end up going into court because of their being arrested on an OAG charge, the parents or a guardian have to pick that kid up, that juvenile up. And they need to be a part of the discussion. We can enforce Now, I can't, I'm a prosecutor. You know where I stand with these juveniles, where I want to reduce the age of accountability. But there can be penalties against the parents who know about the kids' involvement in these teen takeovers. Contributing to the delinquency of a minor is a statute that might be looked at involving the parents. We also have to leverage juvenile court authority over the parents. And until we do that, this is going to continue. The police chief is doing everything that he can. The mayor is doing everything that she can. The DC Council doesn't take this stuff seriously enough. They don't take crime enough. They think teens and juveniles in this city, in this district, need to be coddled. I think the people of the district understand that that's not the case, that there is too much harm going on. And we are working as hard as we can to stop this. But until the DC Council gets their act together, and the mayor was very kind the way she put it, I'm not as kind as the mayor is. They're not doing their job. They're accountable to the people of this district. They need to protect the people in this district. They need to protect other teens who may be involved in these teen takeovers and then become victims of crime themselves. We need to involve the parents, and that's my recommendation. Thank you. You're welcome.
Can I follow up to that, John?
We have time
Why?
for one last question.
It's a question on how that actually works if the juveniles are not picked up on the curfew. Does that mean you're only limited to any of the kids who actually commit a violent crime or crime?
It's not a violent crime. It doesn't have to be a violent crime. Yeah, Chief, you could talk about the fact that the commoding and all the other crimes.
Yeah.
If they're not arrested or brought in for curfew, do you have any numbers on are these kids being brought in for the curfew?
So we do have some young people that are being brought in for curfews. We don't see large numbers of them inside those areas. Typically what we see when the curfew is in effect in the limited areas is, the law requires us, they have to be in a group of 9 or more, and it requires us to provide warnings to try to gain voluntary compliance beforehand. And of course it's limited to 8 to 11 o'clock when the regular curfew breaks in there. So if they're in violation of that, if there's a group of 9 or more, then we have to give those warnings. And what we typically see is when the warning is provided, either the juveniles, young people will break into smaller groups, or they'll go outside of those areas, so they're no longer in violation of the curfew. We have seen assaults. We've seen, of course, the incident with the gun and down in the Navy Yard. We've seen robberies of teens by other teens that are inside of these locations that go out there. So really, what we typically see is when there is victimization, it is other young people that are being victimized with that. So by arresting them, bringing them in, yes, they would be in the system. If they're curfew violators, they would also be in the system.
But Stephanie, it should be clear that we don't want to arrest any kids. What we want is we want their parents to supervise them and keep them at home. By the time they get into a large group at the Navy Yard or someplace else, there's already danger. And there's already danger presented for other neighborhoods in the District of Columbia because the chief has to deploy so many of his resources to babysit, supervise, or arrest children. That is not a good use of our resources. And so what we saw that was very successful when we implemented the curfew over the last year was that parents got the message. It's a tool for parents too. The parents can say, you can't go there because there's a curfew. And children avoided these areas. And so that's what we want. We don't want, anytime there is a large gathering, hundreds of kids, maybe even 1,000 kids in one place, it requires so many police resources that we're drawing from other areas, and it puts the children in more conflict with the police. I heard one of the council, and I'm gonna keep my temperature down for a reason, because then they report that she's mad. They got the ire of the mayor. But then you don't hear what I'm saying. And so I heard one of the council members say that we don't want a curfew because it means that the kids are going to be in contact with the National Guard. If you have 1,000 kids gathering across the city, they are more likely to engage with law enforcement or the National Guard than if they were in constructive environments supervised by their parents and families. Okay, this is a tool we need. It's time for people to put their politics to the side and listen to common sense. Thank you, everybody.